Nowadays, we have a lot of choices for our children's education, which is great, but can also be really stressful. As a parent of an autistic child, I am really thinking a lot about the different choices we have for him. My son's only 4.5. He's in a public pre-K program. He actually just started this week after a long time of getting his IEP developed. But we are still thinking long term about what the right thing is to do for his education. And that gave me the idea to create this video because I have been a teacher for almost 10 years. This is my first year that I'm home with my kids. But I have taught at a charter school, a private school, an online school. And then I myself experienced public school, homeschool, and private school. And so I feel like I'm in a little bit of a unique position to talk about these things, and at least from my experience, so that you can start to think of them for your own child. While I'm doing this, I'm making a base for my veggie mac and cheese. We're doing dairy free for my son. So I choose some vegetables that I boil and then food process, and then I'm going to actually freeze in my prepackaged freezer trays, ready to go for when we're going to do veggie mac and cheese. Let me know if you're interested in the whole video with the recipe, because I made it last night and all the kids liked it. Yay. Okay. And if you're new here, I'm Katie, mom of 4, including an autistic 4-year-old. Like I said, I've also been a teacher. And so I'm sharing our journey and things that are working for us along the way. I do also have linked in the description my 3 free visuals if you're interested in supporting your child with visuals. Okay, so I'm going to talk through the 4 main types of school, which are public, private, homeschool, and charter. Okay, before I fully get into my insights about the different types of schooling situations, know that you can do any of these. Don't let anyone just tell you, oh, homeschool is impossible if your child's autistic. There's support that is available. There's curriculum that is specifically for autistic children. So if that is something that is your heart's desire, do it. And there are creators that even, like, that's their whole thing, is about how they homeschool their autistic child and supports for you doing that. So whatever you choose, you don't have to do it out of fear. You can do whatever is best for your child. Okay, so public school. So one thing is most autistic children are going to require an IEP, which is an individualized education program. Being autistic doesn't itself qualify you. There has to be delays, things that, like, it's determined that having that plan will be helpful. So that's what I just went through. It was like a 4-month process from me requesting the IEP to actually getting it and having him start school, because he's younger than kindergarten age, so he doesn't automatically get enrolled in school in our state. IEP process is quite tedious, and even though I've been a teacher, I've never gone through creating one for my own child. And so let me know if you're interested in a video of just the experience of the whole process, if that would be helpful to you. One of the things with public school is it's so dependent on the district. So we moved this past summer, and when we were house hunting, we were intentionally looking for a really good district, and we knew the district we wanted to be in, and it was mostly because I was thinking about my son. And even if we end up changing over and homeschooling as he gets older, which we might do, the district that you're in can potentially give supports. You can potentially still receive some services from your district. Public school, if you're in a really good district, it might be really great. And then it might really not be great. And the drawback is that you don't have as much control over what's actually being taught. You do have input in the IEP process. And so don't think that you have no control in that if you're going through an IEP process. But you don't have control of who your child's teacher ends up being. You don't have control of how much they love your child. Hopefully, if someone has become a special education teacher, they want to teach children. That they have a desire to be there. As a teacher myself, I tend to believe that most teachers are good and really have good intentions and want to do right by their students. And so we'll just continue to believe that's the case. But you also hear stories of kids who really hate school and have a hard time, and there's a fear of getting bullied, especially as they get older. All of these things, like I said, my child is just in pre-K, so it's something we're doing right now because I think it's going to support him in his development where he is right now, but it's something we also are going to continue to assess as he gets older. The other of public school is bus transportation. And that can be really helpful if you're like me, where you have 4 kids and they're oftentimes going to different destinations. It can help have the transportation. Okay, let's shift to talking about private school. So depending on your child's level of support needs, there might not be a lot of private schools available for you, unfortunately. And that was something that I was quickly learning. So where we were up in the Nashville area before we moved here. And there was actually a school that I was interested in for my son when we were there that had, it's called a hand-in-hand program. And so they had a lot of different children with different disabilities, different support needs. And it was something that could have worked for my son. Here where we are, there isn't really the equivalent of that from what I found with private schools in the area. With private schools, of course, you also have to worry about the expense. Some states are passing school choice where you can use public funds for private education. So that can be helpful if you're in a state that's doing that. You do, when you have to do that, typically sign something that says you're not going to use any public school services because you're taking the funds for your own education or your own school, whether it's homeschool or private school. So keep that in mind if you're in a state that has choice and you're going the private route or even the homeschool route and using money. Okay. Now while we're waiting for that to boil, I'm just going to clean up as I talk. Private school can be great because you can kind of shop around. You can look at the school's philosophy. They might have more that's specifically in line with your children and their needs, smaller class sizes. So if you have a child that doesn't have super high support needs, it can be a good choice for you. But private schools do not have to guarantee that they will educate your child, but public schools do. So public schools have to find a place for your child, make accommodations for them. Private schools don't. And so if your child has really high support needs and the school is not set up to support your child, it's unfortunately not going to be the best place. And there's some private schools that are getting better at creating programs and things that can support children that do have higher support needs. And so encourage that from your private schools that you're interested in. Tell them how much that would be helpful so that more of those programs are created. Okay, charter school is similar to public school. So I'm not going to talk a ton about it. You would have an IEP and all of these things. If your child is going to a charter school, they have to take your child. They have to accommodate those needs. It's essentially publicly funded, but privately run. So they don't have to follow all the rules that a public school has to follow. Sometimes you might get smaller class sizes, more specific philosophies, more specific things that the teachers in those situations. And so that might be if you find a charter school that has a mission that really supports what you're trying to do with your child, or maybe it's a charter school that focuses on neurodivergent children in your area, then that could be a good option for you. Okay, and then there's homeschool. So homeschool is going to be very dependent on the particular state that you are in and what the rules are there. So there's a homeschool situation which you are essentially doing it through a public charter school. So in the US, basically each state has some kind of charter virtual academies. It's called Connections Academy, K-12. I taught at the California one, which at least at the time was CAVA, California Virtual Academies. It's been a few years since I taught online. It was during COVID craziness. But anyway, so that could be where you're not having to pay anything for the curriculum. The teachers are all doing it. You can have an IEP and you're just at home supporting your child, but all of that is set for you. And then there's the full-on homeschool where you are fully the one teaching it and you're maybe purchasing a curriculum. Maybe there's a curriculum that's specific to autism. And so all of these things are possible, but you need to figure out what your ability level is and what supports you need, along with the school choice thing, because some states are now giving funding for families that are homeschooling. So there are platforms such as OutSchool that have teachers with various levels of experience and really cool classes. And some of them are specifically for kids on the spectrum. And there's social groups and things like that. And so don't hesitate to figure out what your state's laws are and then what you would want homeschool to look like if that's something you're interested in for your child. The biggest benefit of homeschool is, of course, the control that you have over your child's education and the time that you have. So you're obviously devoting a ton of time if you're homeschooling, but you're also choosing how your child spends his or her time. And you can do things like going to the library and story time and having that be part of your homeschool day, and doing a co-op where you're getting together once or twice a week and practicing social skills. The other thing is, especially for very young children, if you are doing ABA therapy and your young child's doing very well in that, that could be something where you continue ABA therapy and then homeschool after ABA therapy, especially maybe when your child's in kindergarten, first grade, where it's still so beneficial for them to be doing the skills they're doing in the therapy. That's going to be a lot of work on your part. If you're homeschooling after ABA, maybe you take down the ABA hours a little bit and then manage the homeschool if that's the route that you're choosing. I know this has just been a very brief overview of so many more things. We could have a whole video on each of these. Let me know if you have any questions or what you're interested in hearing more about. Have a wonderful week.